So this surfer smashed into something hard in the water. What it was changed her life forever, because inside it there was a very important message. "A glass bottle?" she exclaimed as she brought it to the shore, intent on finding out what the message said. She just needed to get it open first. But the cork was sealed so tight, she knew she'd need a corkscrew, which is the first thing she grabbed from her kitchen when she got home. Now it was time to find out what the message in the bottle said. Upon closer inspection, it appeared to be from decades in the past, and just like an old wine bottle, the cork crumbled to pieces as she tried to remove it. So she carefully drew out the message. It read, "So you found my dear bottle, but here's the best part. A lofty inheritance to you I impart. Just bring this here note to the address below, and sign with this pen for the gifts I bestow." Tucked into the curve of the paper was the pen, above it, the address, 750 Lorwinkle Avenue. She quickly looked up the address on her phone, a full 12-hour drive up the coast. Although she had school the next day, she filled her backpack with food, sent a sick note to her professors, and headed out. But something didn't seem quite right. A few hours into the trip, she pulled over at a rest station to take a quick break. There, she decided to do a little more research, and so she looked up the street view of the address on her phone. There stood an old, unassuming brick building. On it, the faded remains of a sign. She zoomed in. It read, "Stewart and Wesley Law," with a faded phone number beneath it. This number couldn't possibly still be in service, she thought, but she gave it a try anyways. To her surprise, the phone actually rang. Eventually, it reached a mysterious answering machine, the voice grainy and old. She listened closely to the voice, which said, "At the beep, it's a message we seek. Just state what you found, and we'll come back around." So at the beep, she said the first thing that came to mind. "I was out surfing and found a message in a bottle. I'll be there tomorrow morning." Then up the coast she continued. Eventually, she pulled into the historic beach town where the building resided, but it was late, so she parked in a hotel lot and slept in her car till morning. At daybreak, she made her way to the old brick building, up the old steps, and in front of the heavy wooden door. She knocked, but there was no answer, so she knocked again, this time much harder. Still nothing. Unsure of what to do next, it dawned on her to try calling the phone, but strangely, the number was out of service. Determined, the girl teetered around the building, up to a large, cloudy window. After all, she hadn't come all this way for nothing. Through the window stood an old desk. On it, an old-style dial phone. "Looking for something?" a little old lady hollered from the second-story window, startling the girl below. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to intrude," the girl stuttered. "No need for an apology," the old woman laughed. "I recognize your voice. You're the surfer who found the bottle, aren't you?" She went on to invite the girl inside the old law firm where she now lived, explaining how she was married to one of the partners before he passed. She told the girl about how decades and decades in the past, her husband had a client with no heirs to inherit his fortune. So, as part of his will, he took his boat miles and miles offshore, dropping a message in a bottle. But not long after, her husband's health fell into decline, and the partner could no longer keep the law firm afloat. But she was lucky enough to keep the building, even as worn and run down as it was. She would have moved somewhere nicer years ago, but it was all she could afford. Meanwhile, she kept a promise to pass on the envelope to whoever found the bottle. That's when the little old lady handed the girl the long-awaited envelope, instructing her only to open it when she returned home. When she did, her eyes grew wide. Inside was a check for more money than she had seen in her entire life. On it, a blank endorsement line. That's when she realized. All this time, the little old lady could have easily signed the check over to herself, but she didn't. Instead, she waited decades for this moment. And so, the girl's very first purchase was settled despite costing over half of the check. She bought a beautiful new home for the little old lady, someone with the purest integrity. At the end of the day, even though it took decades and decades, the age-old adage stayed true, that no good deed goes unrewarded.